In the last segment, I want to talk about time. I'm running out of time. And you know what time is like. We have clocks and we look at time and we see, it's about time for me to shut up and get out of here. But who invented time? How do we know what time it is? We didn't always have clocks. We didn't always have watches. So how did we determine time? There was a way in which time was determined. And that was determined many different ways. Early on, time was determined by the sand timer, and then they had a water timer, and they had the sundial that was put up, and the shadow of the sun could determine the hour of the day. But then at night you were stuck because you didn't know what time it was. Men at sea used the sand timer, and they did the 7 bells, 3 bells, ding dong, and the guy flips it over for the next hour. But woe be to you if he forgets to flip that over, because then don't know what time it is. So it was difficult to tell time. Then they came up with the pendulum clock that kept time by the swinging pendulum, and that was great on land. But for sailors, it was not great, because you get on the sea and the sea is bouncing around, and you got the pendulum going bang, bang, bang all over the place, and time is lost. And so they couldn't tell time on ships, and they needed to, because they had to calculate where they were at sea based on the time. And so somebody had to do that. England came up with a great competition, $20,000 for anybody that could come up with a watch that would actually work at sea. And a young man did that. He was a clockmaker. He came up with a nice timepiece that was based on by springs and an exact clicking of that spring, and you could keep time. And so we began to have watches that told better time. Those things were very helpful. But what about our present time? We have a clock. Do you ever see the clock? Look at the clock. What time is it? How do you know what time it is? Well, it didn't always work out this way. Who came up with 60 minutes per hour and 24 hours? Well, that was invented because people needed a more precise way of telling time. And I'm not going to go into all of that with our study in the video, because you can pick it up in the information in your little handouts that I have. It's quite complicated. But today we have sophisticated ways of telling time, and today the best way of telling time is by an atomic clock based on cesium, and that was an element in the periodic table, and cesium can take 1 second and break it down into over 9 billion clicks. Can you imagine that? 1 second. 9 billion clicks within that to tell the preciseness of time. All of that to help us understand that time is a complicated thing. Many people don't understand it, and philosophers and scientists are discussing whether time is possible, if it's continual, or does it loop around, or can you travel in time? And that's what I want you to discuss in your discussion time. Do you think time travel would ever be possible? That you could find out a way to go back to the future and see things? I don't know that that's ever going to be possible. I don't think so. But when I get to heaven, I want God to set up a great big video screen so we can see creation and all the different events in history. All of that as God explains to us that this was His history. This was His plan. This was His doing all the way through from beginning to end. The intertestamental period helps us to understand time and history, and that history belongs to the Lord. God bless you. We'll see you next week.